the wealth gap. I think the biggest problem in general in this country is the wealth gap. It's a class aspect. So did this kind of a bill impact the wealth gap either positively or negatively? And is it even possible to know? Or is that just like a media talking point to get people riled up? So you as a tax expert, can you determine that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I can tell you for a fact I can't determine it. So I'm sure there's someone out there probably who's going to claim that they can. And I took my macroeconomics class at NC State, but I did not care for macroeconomics. And so I'll leave some of that speculation maybe to Andrew if he cares to go down that route too. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the wealth gap, I mean it's a fact. The wealth gap's getting bigger, I think. I mean, I don't think that there's any dispute there. Did the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act add to it? I don't know. It might have. But I think that, what would it have done over the last 8 years without the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act? I've got no clue. What would it have done, again, with what Andrew said, without COVID? Like, I don't know. Now, there might be someone who, kind of looked at it in the data and everything and could tell you like absolutely. But again, I think most of it's speculation. I think when it comes to taxes, the wealth gap, who pays their fair share, I think 99.9% of it is garbage that the media is just talking points. I mean, it goes back to the fact that people complaining about what they're paying in taxes, like Andrew said, and they're paying the least they've ever paid before in their life, but they don't really remember what they were paying before, right? And so it's more just like what they're being fed and what they're thinking, because you can influence what someone's thinking just by by telling them those things. And so, I mean, again, to go back to what you were saying just a second ago, I mean, did it work, right? And you hit it, Andrew, right? It's maybe mostly depending on how you define win or not. I mean, we talk about this too, lifestyle creep, right? I mean, I know you talk about lifestyle creep all the time. And as a country, we got some significant lifestyle creep, right? Like, oh, I want to pay less in taxes. Oh, the government shouldn't have all this money. Whoa, don't take away those benefits. Don't stop doing that. Don't stop doing. And it's like, well, you can't keep cutting taxes and reduce the debt and have all the stuff that we have. So, what do you want? Like you gotta pick and choose here. And I feel like right now, because again, statistically, right, Andrew, tell me how many people are saving enough for retirement, right? I mean, it's got to be less than I don't know the percent, but nobody's saving enough. Nobody's saving enough for taxes, and I think it's the same thing because they don't have that long range view. We don't have that long range view. We're like, yeah, cut my taxes, pay for all the benefits, raise the debt ceiling. We don't have to worry about it.
And people have these problems, right? Like, yeah, you asked me 2 years ago, would I save enough for retirement? I'd say no, I'm not. I wasn't. Now I say I am, which is great. But like, are corporations paying more taxes or taxing the wealthy more gonna make it easier for me to save for retirement? Probably not. I doubt it, but lowering my tax rate, me paying less taxes, me living in New Jersey, eventually getting those SALT benefits, could that help me save for my retirement or my kids' education or the down payment on a mortgage on a house? Yeah, absolutely. So how do you guys as advisors, Andrew, this is probably more towards you because you're more on the advisor front, tackle that mindset of a younger person being like, the rich aren't paying their fair share? It's like, okay, but do you see how that doesn't necessarily help you?
hmm Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, I think we all are victims of the comparison game. And, someone has something we don't, or we have something someone else doesn't. And, oftentimes the fairness piece comes into the equation of it. But, as it stems from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I definitely think the skewing effect of where we are now, and it may not be from specifically this cut, but it definitely benefited over the last several years the wealthier and the higher executive level folks. I work with some clients that are again bank executives, highly paid, C-suite type areas, and man, their incomes over the last couple of years have gone up huge. I mean, huge compared to the guys that I work with that run HVAC businesses. or landscaping businesses, and they make good money, right? But their income hasn't doubled in 4 or 5 years, and they're in sole creation of it. So I think there is definitely this, kind of, okay, that's not fair to them. This isn't fair to us, et cetera. And that's the reality of any tax law. Unfortunately, there's going to be losers. There's no tax law that's going to make everybody happy and complement every single class from lower income, middle income, higher income. And I think to your point, Will, I mean, I definitely see it. I think the spread between the haves and the have-nots is definitely widening. I think that definitely is. Um, but again, I'm not an economist, so it's hard for me to look at the data to say like, okay, what is the key component to that, and yeah, how do you make it fair again, or how do you? And I don't know if life's ever been fair because I mean, you look back 400 years ago in Florence, Italy. I mean, you had a lot of poverty and you had some really, really rich people. So it's like, is that just life? Is that life in a monetary and capitalist-based system that you're going to have those wide spreads and that barbell type, classification of people's wealth?
I got a question for you, Andrew. So if you would agree with this or not, is that wealth gap, right? That wealth gap that's getting bigger and bigger. Uh, anyone. I mean, I fully believe that anyone can start a business and they can grow wealth, and anyone can increase their wealth. There's only one way to do it, right? You got to spend less than you make. That's the only way that you can actually increase your wealth. But if you've got money, it is way easier to make money. So, regardless of tax policy, if I'm sitting on $1 million or $50,000, I can double $1 million way faster than I can double 50,000. And I just think that wealth gap, unless you create punitive taxes, I feel like that wealth gap is going to keep growing anyway, simply because when you have more, it's easier to create more. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not.
No, 100%. Yeah, compound interest, is an amazing thing. Like, I think of, yeah, people who, again, have what we would call modest, $100,000, $200,000 of money. And you're right, Brad. The idea there is, okay, I could grow this money, but also I need to preserve it because that's all I've got. Whereas on the other side, someone who has 2, 3 million bucks, they're like, man, I earn 5%. That's 150,000 extra dollars. But if I earn 20%, it's like, whoo, you're leaps and bounds beyond. So yeah, I definitely agree to that point. And it's, the folks, and I explain it just like investing. I tell people all the time, it's like assets that you own are going to be a lot like plants. You're going to have your shrub that grows so big and it does its job, or you could have your sequoia, tree that grows 150 feet up in the air, and it's all risk based and time based for a lot of people. But I definitely agree, like you, Brad, that yes, I still think the dream of being able to create wealth, the ability to do so is there. But man, if you just don't have a pile of money, it is harder for sure. It definitely is.
Well, Brad, you said if you have more, it's easier to create more. I think that is the basis principle of trickle down economics. Like the idea is, if we leave money at the top, they're going to create it through jobs, through the economy, and it's going to trickle down. Rich people tend to spend more money. Maybe not at least individually compared to the middle class, but as a whole, the middle class still spends more. So with all that being said, but at the same time, the wealth gap is still there. So do you believe, this is for both of you, that trickle-down economics actually works? Or is it just too much of human nature to be like, hey man, I have this money, I worked hard for it, I'm gonna hoard it or make it work for me as opposed to the whole? Because if you ask me personally, I think trickle-down economics is a bunch of BS. I think it's hand-up economics. Money gets handed up, not passed down.
Yeah, I'd have to say I agree with you on that one. If you look back at Reaganomics back in the 80s in the theory now that we have 40 years to look back on that and even what's happened. But you even think of the corporation side, right? So let's use a big publicly traded company as an example. They get their tax cut or their rates cut, like Brad mentioned. All of a sudden they got excess cash. And they're like, hey, what can we do with our cash? Well, we could hire more people, invest more in warehouses, grow, or we could buy our company's stock. because we feel very excited about our company stock and our executives own 20% of our company stock. So you're exactly right. They've got this free cash now, share buybacks, boom, 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 boom. They're buying their own company stock prices go up, the executives get wealthier, the executive sells the stock, and what's he do? Well, most of them aren't giving the money to the poor and supporting charities. Most of them are buying a yacht. They're going on a cruise around Grenada. So yeah, I would say the majority of wealth is self-serving, for sure. And it stems from that very high level. But Brad, what do you think, man? I may be way wrong.
I gotta, I mean, I gotta agree and disagree maybe in a couple of different ways. And, trickle down, I think it's great in theory. It's great on paper, as are a lot of things. And then when you get into real life, it's not working, right? So, if you, exactly what you said, Andrew, if you cut the corporate tax rate, you know, tomorrow clothes aren't coming down, groceries aren't coming down. I mean, you got things like groceries, that stuff bounces around a little bit. Gas, of course, bounces around some. But if you go in and you take a company that's paying 35%, you cut it to 21%, they might do some more hiring, right? But they're gonna put way more money in their own pockets before they do that. And to me, it's kind of like this boiling frog too, right? Like you increase the temperature slowly, 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 right? The frog doesn't jump out. You boil the frog. We've all heard that, and it's kind of the same thing. I mean, if you cut my taxes tomorrow, my prices aren't going down because my clients are used to it, right? I'm gonna be grateful, and I'm gonna stick more of that money in my pocket. Now, I will say though, especially at the small business level, I do think you cut my taxes, I'm much more likely to go out and be able to hire someone to help me out, because again, that benefits me, benefits them, but I've now got more money to be able to invest that in that. Now, I might improve software to improve customer service or something like that, and not necessarily hire someone. So, and again, I wouldn't say the trickle down is supposed to be coming from me. I'm not that wealthy. But yeah, I do think that if there's more cash flow, people are going to be quicker to pull the trigger to hire people. Now AI, and all that stuff is throwing it. So the money is going to go somewhere, right? It's going to be reinvested into the company, all with the mindset though of them trying to make more money for themselves. Right? Even if they hire someone, they're not doing it to support that person. They're doing it to make their company better. And again, I don't think every executive, is 100% greedy, 100% selfish out for themselves, right? I mean, I would say I've got employees that I could replace, but I'd rather work with them than a computer, even if I make less money. But yeah, does it work? I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, like I think there's more money flowing. I think that it probably helps the economy a lot, but it's not like this dollar for dollar. I cut your taxes, so I immediately raise my employees' wages 100% for what I just saved in taxes. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, no, that doesn't necessarily happen. But in terms of prices, in terms of regular prices, if they get a tax cut, prices aren't necessarily going to go down. But if they get a tax hike, you can bet prices are going to go up.
Oh, they're absolutely going to pass it through. Yeah.
If you still have concerns and you still have questions, Andrew, Brad, where's the best place to reach you? How can people get in contact with you? And what questions should they be asking you about this topic?
Yeah, everyone can find me on LinkedIn, my YouTube page, Andrew Rose, Financial Advisor, and my website, andrewkrose.com as well. But yeah, I think the biggest thing people want to know is when this bill passed, whatever's in this bill, what it looks like, is people are going to want to know how it affects them. What is 2026 going to look like? And I can spend a lot of times with clients forecasting and looking at the change to see what may or may not be different from this year and the next year to prevent surprises, but also to find opportunities. If there's any big benefit there that could really help people plan for that. So those would be the biggest things. If I can help, by all means, reach out.
LinkedIn, Brad Wooten CPA, YouTube, Wooten CPA, website, wootncpa.com. So you go to any of those places, connect with me. And in terms of what folks out there should be doing, I'm not going to tell you to actually stop watching the YouTube tax advice. Don't stop watching the TikTok tax advice. Keep watching it. Just don't actually do anything based on it, right? Reach out to a tax professional, reach out to me or someone else, and talk to them before you do something. Stop reaching out to tax people in February and March. It's too late. You should be reaching out to them right now. You should be reaching out to them before you set the LLC up, before you make the S corp election, and talk to someone in person. Again, keep watching the videos. I think the awareness is great, but there's a lot of misinformation out there, and reach out before you do things instead of after.